The playoffs are heating up, and you can still play along on Underdog Fantasy. Whether it's their pick'em game, where you pick higher or lower on 2 to 5 of your favorite players' stats, or their fan-favorite draft games, there's plenty of fun to be had, and maybe you'll win some money when you do. Head over to Underdog Fantasy's app or website to check it out now, where they match your first-time deposit up to $100.
Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined by Josh Bowe. As always, we are coming to you while the sun's still up. It's about 5 o'clock on Saturday, February 10th. The Dallas Mavericks just annihilated the Oklahoma City Thunder, 146-111. Josh Bowe, how are you?
I'm good. I love talking to you before the sun has set.
We've had 4 games in a row that are just like early. It's nice.
Warms my heart.
Nice.
That was a pretty fun game. Did you get man? Things are better for one game.
So what you're telling me, and this is a wild thing. I think we've done this like 2 or 3 years in a row. So what you're telling me, Josh, is that when you put good, normal-sized NBA players who know how to play basketball around Luka Doncic, good things can happen? Is that what I'm to understand?
It's a complicated formula, but yes, I believe that is.
We're really lucky the Dallas Mavericks fell upon the formula of good basketball players surrounding a generational talent. I cannot believe this happened.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I think what's crazy, a lot of this game is pretty crazy, but those guys arrived. They said they got into Dallas Thursday at midnight, woke up. I guess, they were off Friday, so I guess they had Friday to try to get acclimated.
Lots of film sessions. That's what the TV people were talking about.
Yeah, and then they had to do, they did their press conference this morning, 4 hours before the game started. That's pretty impressive to just go back in there and just hoop like they did. But you know what? Luka Doncic makes things pretty easy. And like you said, if you are a good, competent basketball player, it fits like a glove. And there were moments in the first half where they were looking like the Showtime Lakers. That was pretty nuts.
So I don't even know where to start. So I'm just going to pick a play.
Okay.
There was a botched lob attempt from Luka Doncic to Daniel Gafford, where Gafford went up and got the ball anyway and scored. Do you know what play I'm talking about?
Was this the one? Was it in the first half, kind of like on a fast break?
Yeah, and it was on a pick and roll, and there's 3 dudes around Gafford, and Gafford basically volleyballs it to himself when he realizes he's not going to be able to get the dunk, because he's a little too far away, and there's just the defense a little too on him, and he pulls it down and just puts it back in the hoop with a gentleness and just a touch that I love Maxey and am grateful for Dwight's 37 years of Dallas Mavericks service, but they can't do that. And frankly, Derek Lively can't yet either. And there's just so many moments of this game that make you go, oh, okay.
This game felt like the part in Billy Madison where he grabs the dodgeball and says, "Uh-oh, you guys are in big trouble now."
big trouble.
Yeah. Because Gafford, I'm not watching Wizards games. I'm going to be honest with you.
I was when I was there, but it's been 2 years.
Was he there when you were there? Or was he still in Chicago?
2019. He's been a guy just because of the team being, because I think I said this the other day. The Washington Wizards have won under 50 games for 45 straight seasons.
That's an amazing stat.
they are just a testament to ineptitude. Shout out Washington Wizards. And so he was always on the team, particularly when I started taking Parker. And he stood out because he's an athlete. And I know he measures 6'9", but he's got a really nice vertical jump. He's also got big shoulders.
Yes, he's a big dude. He's a sturdy lad.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where sometimes it doesn't translate to TV how either narrow or wide these guys are. Like lots of people like to argue about Luka Doncic's height. Luka's height is not the point. Luka's width is the point. The man is a tank. And when you're so if we're talking Gafford and Luka doing a pick and roll, we're talking a pair of tanks. Okay.
That's a lot of weight.
In
a good way.
In a way that's very difficult to guard because you have to keep bodies in front of them as they're going at the hoop. And clearly, tonight the Thunder, if there's one knock against the Thunder, it's that they don't have a lot of size.
They're slight.
They're slight. Yeah, because they have some really tall and rangy dudes, but not a lot of like big guys.
Right.
And so this was nice. I'm really sort of struggling as to figuring out how to talk because I turned it on in the middle of the first quarter. I was coming back from HEB and it was 28-14. And I texted everybody, or I slacked them as Moneyball Slack, and I said, "What the hell is going on?" It was like 6 minutes into the game.
Dude, it was like I said, it was like Showtime Lakers in the first quarter. It was getting out on the fast break. Did you end up seeing? You probably missed it then, if that's when you tuned in.
I saw the replay.
The Josh Green behind the back. Like, I mean, this team was doing stuff that were like, wait, what? Like, what? So that was pretty awesome. Yeah, Gafford's listed as 4 pounds heavier than Derek Lively, and Derek Lively has, I think,
how much, by the way?
234 to 230. So
good to know. Good to know. My 40-year-old 6'3" ass weighs more than both of these players at a crisp 240.
Hey, me too. But I guess I'm a little taller, but whatever. But hey, I mean, it's only 4 pounds. That's what's listed, but that makes
right. It's a different look, though.
Yeah,
the way the weight's distributed.
Yeah, and he had 4 offensive rebounds in 17 minutes, which is pretty good. Defensive rebounding is kind of an issue, but that's okay because he's playing. He's going to be playing minutes off the bench theoretically when Lively gets back. But yeah, the offensive rebounding was something I noticed too, like the way he was able to. Because the Mavericks are a bad offensive rebounding team. They've been a terrible offensive rebounding team for years, even predating Luka, going back to like Carlisle before Luka, because Carlisle always wanted transition defense. He didn't like guys crashing the glass. I think his rule was one guy could crash the glass and everyone else had to get back. So they've never really been an offensive rebounding team, which is like becoming a bigger and bigger tool for a lot of these teams. Like,
well, because it's one of those things that analytics will not, I hate to be this broad, but essentially analytics pushed folks away from sending guys to the offensive boards because you get beat in transition.
But now it's like a market inefficiency.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's starting to come back into vogue, and there are teams that are utilizing it in a way to like close gaps that might not be there in terms of like a talent disadvantage. You can get some, getting extra possessions is good. You usually win basketball games if you have more if you have more shot attempts than the other team.
Yeah.
So that was good. I thought that was like immediately noticeable. Was just the way he was able to get up, and not, Dwight Powell gets his offensive rebounds, but he usually gets his on the tip outs and stuff like that. Like Gafford was legitimately just like outworking and outbigging the Thunder front line on a lot of those offensive rebounds, which was cool. And then PJ Washington doing kind of exactly the things that everyone hoped, best case scenario, one game. Like, wow, a guy that can attack a closeout and score in the lane is just such a commodity for this Mavericks team on the wing when you're playing next to Luka.
Well, I want to get to Washington here shortly, but I need to run a take past you that's been sort of just in the old head. To me, in my brain, there's sort of two kinds of NBA players. There are players that when you are paired with Luka Doncic, you are diminished and you aren't able to play to your full capacity because Luka is just too big of an orbit. Then there are guys who Luka so multiplies that it's really difficult to judge their value. Spencer Dinwiddie, for example, who just joined the Los Angeles Lakers. Eat shit, Spencer. Thank you very much for not joining our team. I hope you go tank the Lakers now. But Spencer played amazing with Luka. probably some of the best basketball of his career.
The most efficient he's ever been in his life was next.
And but then you have a guy like DeLon Wright who really couldn't find a role. You have Josh Richardson who really struggled. And then, to a certain extent, Grant Williams. But then you got guys like PJ Washington who come in. Granted, it's one game. So all the fans.
Derek Lively.
Lively's a great example because it's like
Derek Jones. Like there's examples. Look at Tim Hardaway. Look at Dorian. I mean, look at what Dorian did in Dallas compared to what he's done in Brooklyn.
Yes. So I was sort of thinking about that prior to the game, and then I turn on and I see the full court pass to Gafford for a dunk, and then like just repeated oops, and it's like, oh no. I mean, okay, so all right, 10 minutes into the show here. If you guys could do me a favor, there's a lot of people in the live stream. I think it's the early game. We get some European fans.
Oh boy, this is the most we've had in a while.
Yeah, this is the most we've had since we've been at this platform. If you could do me a favor and go ahead and click the like button while you're down there. It really helps Josh and I. If you would consider subscribing to the show, I'd be grateful for that as well. You can also get notified when we go live. We go live after every single game. It's usually within 15 to 20 minutes, depending on what's going on. And then most of the time, I'm going to try to host a live show where you guys can come up and join. I wish I could do one tonight because there's all sorts of stuff that people would like to talk about, I'm sure. But I promised my son that we would watch The Empire Strikes Back. He is at the ripe age to where I can get for Star Wars indoctrination. And so I'm taking advantage of him saying yes over playing Pokemon. If you could also do me a favor and if you're listening on the audio streams, go ahead and leave us a review. And if you are watching this video at a later date, go ahead and leave a real comment on the video. Those things help Josh and I as well. We'll be right back if you're listening on an audio stream because we're going to plug in some quick ads.
The playoffs are heating up, and you can still play along on Underdog Fantasy. Whether it's their pick'em game, where you pick higher or lower on 2 to 5 of your favorite players' stats, or their fan favorite draft games, there's plenty of fun to be had, and maybe you'll win some money when you do. Head over to Underdog Fantasy's app or website to check it out now, where they match your first-time deposit up to $100. We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Thanks so much for letting me chill for a minute. Okay, so PJ Washington, who I learned last night was a local kid. I mean, that shows you how much I paid attention to this trade deadline just because it's just not my thing. So I don't like to talk about things that I don't want to fake being an expert in. Local man, played out in Frisco for a little while. Then he went out to Findlay Prep, which was actually a place I've played basketball. And it's before the prep school closed down, was essentially an NBA factory. There's 15 or 20 guys that went through there, names that I can recognize. And the gym was smaller than most 3A JV gyms. It was such a weird place to play basketball. But so he's been with the Hornets for the last several years, and is just a fascinating player. Sort of has struggled with efficiency in certain ranges, and so I know ESPN's Tim Bontemps was not high on the move at all, just because he's not been a very efficient player. And I'm very curious as to what you think about his fit with the Mavericks after one game relative to what I said about the Luka Doncic multiplying effect.
Yeah, I think the big thing for him, I think that everyone was talking about the three-point shooting because he has not been a good three-point shooter lately. And when I mean lately, I don't just mean this season. I mean the last couple of seasons. He started the league. He entered the league as a good shooter, and his three-point percentage has slowly gotten worse over the last 3 seasons, 36 to 34 to 32 now before this game. And what was even weirder was, because the first thing you think is, well, he's on a crappy team. He's probably taking a lot of pull-up threes and end of shot clock. Like he's probably taking a lot of bad shots to tank his percentage. He's shooting really bad on spot-up threes and corner threes this season.
Which is so weird.
It is
Some
weird
guys
because
struggle with it.
His jumper looks good, like technically, like it looks good. Like he has a good form on his jumper. So it's weird. And it's, a lot of people with Luka, they bring up the shooting and it's like, well, he's not shooting well. He's not going to fit next to Luka. And I think there's been this, I don't know if you want to call it narrative, but there's just been this idea that the only player, like the ideal player to play next to Luka is just someone who can hit spot up threes. And I get it because Luka is one of the best, if not the best, 3-point shot creator in the league. Mm-hmm. But to me, the best fit next to Luka is someone that can do something with the space that he creates. Because Luka isn't just creating 3-point shots. He's creating space because he has almost all of the defense's attention on him every time he's on the floor. He gets 2 on the ball more than anyone else in the league, which has been repeated by a ton of people. Like that's just, don't even need to reference where that stat comes from. Like he's been blitzed on the pick and roll more than anyone else in the NBA. And it's more than, years ago, the 3-and-D player, I feel like, was more optimal as teams were starting to like utilize the 3-point line more and analytics and all that stuff. Well, defenses, I think, are starting to catch up to that, and they are running these limited shooters off the line more than they did, let's say, like in 2015 or 2016, 2017, when the 3-point shot really started to boom with the Warriors titles. And because of that, now the offense has to adjust. You now need more guys that if you're getting closed out on by a defense, what are you going to do with the ball? Because if it's just passing it along the perimeter and it ends back in Luka's hands, we've seen what happens. He has to take an exasperated shot at the end of the shot clock, and the defense gets worse because usually bad shots equal bad transition defense and runouts. And it just doesn't work. And we've seen in big games, good teams just leaving the Mavericks spot-up shooters open because they, feel either they don't care if they shoot because they don't trust that they're good shooters, or they trust their defense to close out. And once they close out, they're like, well, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to hurt us if we really close out and sell on you. So the big thing, like, it's okay that, Washington needs to shoot better from 3, I think, to maximize his time in Dallas. But if he doesn't shoot like a crazy high percentage, just the fact that he knows what to do with a live dribble when a defender is running at him beyond the 3-point line makes an immeasurable difference to how this offense can flow and move and take some of the pressure off of Luka to have to do literally everything to create offense and generate buckets. The Mavericks had 66 points in the paint today.
66?
Yes, they had 66 points. They were 25. Yes, sorry. They were 25 of 27 at the rim today. The Oklahoma City Thunder made 2 more 3-pointers than them.
Wow.
How many times have the Mavericks won a game?
That just hasn't happened this year.
Right. So, yes, he needs to shoot better. But, man, if he's open on the wing and a defender's running at him, his ability to take a hard dribble and finish a little floater in the paint matters so much more than him hitting like 38 or 39% of his threes. Like he does need to shoot better, but this matters to the offense at least way more, in my opinion. It makes it more sustainable against the better defenses.
Because threes are not going to always fall.
Right. There's a variable. Even the best shooters miss, 3 out of every 5 threes they take. Like that's 40%, 2 out of 5. So like, yeah, you got to have something more reliable.
So it's really going to be something. And both of them brought kind of a palpable energy that was really, it's kind of hard to describe other than the fact that, Lively's still sort of finding his skis. Dwight Powell is Dwight, and Maxi's just not that kind of guy. So big demonstrative post play is actually quite nice. Now, one of the other things that I noticed, and this is just limited sample size, it's 1 game, but what it actually felt like to me is that having these guys playing center, small forward, power forward, the mix, between the 2 guys, that you got Gafford that can play, he's probably primarily going to play center right now, but you might spot him at that, power forward occasionally. You're going to run PJ between power forward and small forward, depending on what the lineups are. But what I was just, and granted, I'm like holding the baby during this, feeding the baby. So some of my analysis might be garbage today. I apologize. But it felt like everyone else slid into a, Luka and Kyrie aside, the rest of the roster slid into slightly different positions, which allowed them to play a little more free. and a little harder and a little faster. You know, like a Josh Green dunk coming in transition. It was just, this is a little more to it. Maxey is playing with force over these last several games we haven't seen in like 2 years. I Tim Hardaway's shots don't feel quite so no, yes. Granted, this is just, one game's kind of overreaction to it, but it felt like there was just a level of sustainability to what we were seeing with the rest of the roster, instead of it always being like, all right, are we going to get the peak version of these guys tonight? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're kind of hitting it on the head. What we've kind of circled around since 2019 really is this trade so far through one game. It looks like it's slotting the rest of the role players into better spots on the totem pole, if that makes sense. Because what they traded, they didn't give up anyone in these trades that was a productive member of their rotation. No. When you think about it. It was Rashawn Holmes, Seth Curry, who didn't play, and Grant Williams, who was playing bad and was coming off the bench after getting demoted because he was playing poorly. Like, you replace those three with two guys that can play. It's not only you're getting their production, but now, okay, Maxey doesn't have to be the best big every night if Lively's not playing. Because guess what? Gafford's coming in off the bench and he's getting rebounds and he's getting dunks. Right. Tim Hardaway Jr. doesn't need to be shooting so much to score 35 points every game, because now you've got some distributed scoring between Washington, Luka, Kyrie, Tim, and even Gafford when he's in there getting buckets, because everything feels a little bit better in place. So those guys are going to take the pressure off the remaining role players that are still on the roster, where they don't have to feel like they have to be perfect players every single night to win games. And I think that's a big deal. Because that what we've been talking about for so long, they played so many guys in the rotation that would any of the top 4 teams in either conference have these guys playing regular minutes in the rotation? Like, how many guys have the Mavericks thrown out over the last 4 or 5 years that we said that about? So just adding 2 more guys that feel like legitimate NBA rotation players on a good team, I think it's going to make Maxey better. It's going to make Tim Hardaway Jr. better. It's going to make Josh Green better. It's going to make Derek Jones Jr. better, because Derek Jones Jr. only scored 8 points, and that's fine. And they've needed him to be a double-digit scorer most of the year, and that's not him. That would be awesome if he did that, but that's never been his game his whole career. So, Dwight Powell was a victory cigar coming off the bench in the fourth quarter. How long have we been wanting? Man, we like Powell. Good dude for the locker room, but if they could just not rely on him so much for big man minutes, that'd be great. And that happened tonight. So I think that's another part of it, is just, they removed the stuff from the roster that was not giving them anything. And those 2 guys immediately come in and combine to score 33 points in their first game. It's just ooh, that makes a difference.
So as is our tradition here, we sort of inadvertently downplay just how fucking good Luka Doncic is. Not on purpose, just because we don't constantly want to come in here and be like, oh my God, Luka, 14 shots, 32 points, LOL to that. 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and played only 31 minutes, which was really, really quite something. And if you're able to just spell him if you're able to play Luka 36 minutes a night over the rest of the year, and a lot of people are going to be like, why does that 4 minutes matter? Well, that 4 minutes over the course of 12 games is a full game extra that Luka's playing. So for a guy this big who plays this physical basketball, considering and conserving his minutes is going to be really important. And then there's the additional he played with a level of juice tonight that I haven't seen in a while.
You think the Slovenian fan base being able to watch this game live, because he's usually good. He's always good in the afternoon games because he knows his family and friends can watch.
That's why they played it too. I didn't even think about that. This is why I'm stupid. I used to think about these things in advance, not anymore.
No, it's okay.
That was really remarkable. And then I think we have to talk about the fact, who else played just a really door closing, mean game was Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, he looked great. He's been great since he's come back, by the way.
He has.
He's been awesome.
He has, but he was authoritative in this game, and really just he's the kind of made some plays and some shots tonight that had to just drain the life out of you if you're a Thunder fan. He had a left-handed across the lane over 3 guys move where I'm just like that. All right, that's why he exists. That's why he's there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I wrote in the recap, like it's fun to have these new role players, but the team only goes so far as Luka and Kyrie go, and they were awesome tonight. I thought it was so Kyrie came back on Monday against Philadelphia. So they've played 4 games with Kyrie back. They're 4-0. This was the first, I think, really impressive win. The other were against teams that were kind of down bad, but that's okay because you take wins. You can't dictate the schedule. But Luka in these 4 games has 2 games under 20 shot attempts. The last time before the Philadelphia game on Monday, he had a game with less than 20 shot attempts was like early November against the Sacramento Kings. So he's gone 2.5 months without having a game under 20 shot attempts. Like just having Kyrie on the floor just makes such a big difference for Luka, and having good Kyrie, like he's been back and he's shooting like over 55%
he didn't even
from
shoot
the field.
The 3 ball that well tonight.
No, and he's still shooting but he's nails on everything inside the arc right now. Which is great. So like just having them back, like I think the thing that's gotten lost is we've always said like the numbers show when they play together, they're good. The record isn't good, but like the data behind their minutes is they're winning those minutes. It's been everything else. So, I mean, that's going to be the key for the rest of the season. As good as Washington looked, as good as Gafford looked, if those 2 can stay healthy, stay on the floor, they're going to win. They're going to win some games.
Well, and one of the, we're winding towards, closing out. We'll talk for a little bit longer here. You pull us back to mid-January when you and I had looked ahead to this point in the schedule. And frankly, I wrote a piece. Which game was it? I did the recap for one of these games several weeks ago and sort of like lost my mind at the end of it where it was after one of the losses. I think it was a Bucks loss. Yeah, it's a Bucks loss. Which is obviously not too many games ago, or not too many.
About a week or so ago, week and a half ago.
The right thing, yeah, about a week, yeah. And I just wrote that these guys need to pull it together and quit barking, quit complaining, just go play basketball. And there was a lot of I don't want to say like outright negative, but a lot of the press has essentially confirmed through sourcing that Grant rubbed people the wrong way. Call that what you will. But sometimes, and I don't necessarily think it's like he's a bad dude or anything like that. Honestly, what it sounds like to me is he's the guy in the office that just won't shut the fuck up. And after a while, it's you're working on a big project. You got to close out the project, and the guy's not doing his part of the project while continuing to talk. And they had to get that vibe. They had to change that vibe. And honestly, like you could see Luka's just delight in the post game following the last game with what they had done. And I see Edvard in the chat saying no need for bashing Grant. It's not bashing to basically say that he was he
was a minus player.
He was an element in what was going on with the team chemistry that was not working. Like that's just a point of fact. And so it's like they pull that element out. They get Luka 2 different players that actually really accentuate his strengths. And here you are with a team that is, you go out and you score 146 points. It's not going to happen every game, but to do it against the Thunder.
Yeah, one of the best defenses in the league.
It's just such a point where we were talking, and I wrote some very dramatic closing graph from like these guys need to look themselves in the mirror and figure out what they want to do. Do they want to go win games, or do they want to keep kind of just slogging and farting around? So when you change up the elements, and we've seen that from the very beginning, this team has something that when that something gets really accentuated, they go and can really win basketball games. It's not going to be the smooth sailing, but we were worried as recently as 2 weeks ago that the Dallas Mavericks would go into All-Star break below 500. They are now 7 games above 500 with the chance to win 2 more. They have 2, frankly, trap games ahead on the schedule. They play the Washington Wizards. And like, I really hope Rashawn Holmes doesn't score like 25 points because that would be just hilariously embarrassing. And then they play the San Antonio Spurs, who don't have enough, talent to stick up with the Mavericks, but they do have a 7'5" mutant who can do all sorts of crazy things with the basketball. Interestingly enough, I got fed a text from a friend around the NBA. Oh, I'm not going to be like a team official or anything, but just through various channels, it's been said that Wemby had said to somebody that Daniel Gafford actually guarded him as well as anybody has the entire year. So that's very interesting to me.
Yeah, they need to close. They need to close with 2 wins. If they any loss here in the next 2 games would be a real bummer going into the All-Star break, because it's not that those 2 teams are bad. They're like the Wizards, the Spurs, the Hornets, the Pistons. I think those are, and the Trailblazers. They're like, not only are those the 4 worst teams in the NBA, they're like historically like 4 of the worst seasons that have happened in the NBA. Like they are not good teams. So those need to be, they need to take care of business, which, to be fair, the Mavericks have mostly taken care of business against bad teams. Their record against teams below 500 is really, really good. I know fans pull their hair out at some of the losses last season, and they lost to the shorthanded Memphis earlier this year. So I know no one's going to trust the team to take care of business, but they've actually been pretty good about it. So yeah, they need to go into the All-Star break strong. But yeah, this reminded me. Remember the game, the first game they played after they traded Kristaps Porzingis, and they beat the Clippers by like 50 points or something.
That was crazy.
This felt like that game. Like, I mean, there's obviously some sort of weight lifted off their shoulders and a new energy in the roster. And sometimes it's just, wow, new face. Like any new face will help. Like sometimes
I undervalue that every trade deadline. It's not on purpose. But it's very evident where it's just like, all right, say you don't agree with my Grant analysis at all, which, reading some of the comments, people don't, which I don't understand, but that's fine. I just think mixing it up is not necessarily the worst thing. If you go play a run of 5-on-5 with some of your friends, and occasionally you switch out 1 or 2 guys, and the energy's different, and that's palpable. I mean, I don't know if you watched the post-game interview with Skin Wade, but PJ and Gafford were like, they were psyched.
Yeah, they were on 2 of the worst teams ever, and now they're on a team winning with Luka.
Yeah,
they're gonna get good contracts whenever they're out.
It's not from other players. It's not from other players, but there's this fan-driven narrative of people who don't like the way that Luka is plays, that insists on basically saying that the other players don't like Luka, I wouldn't want to play with that guy. And it's like, no, great, like, players want to play with great players. They do. One thing that I feel the need to address, this is a fan 123 in the chat kind of makes a point. I just want to talk about this. At the end of Tim McMahon's Hoop Collective note about Grant, he made the sort of like jab about Grant Williams switching shoes from Luka's to Tatum's. I don't really like the Luka 2s this year. They're not my favorites. The Tatum's are a little interesting. NBA players do switch shoes fairly recently. One of the things that everybody took and ran with, and I don't understand why, was that Luka, the easy dumb fan response was, well, Luka wanted him out of there because he switched his shoes. Tim wasn't saying that about Luka. Tim was basically saying, why is Grant dumb enough to change his shoes? That's what the point was. It was not a Luka jab. It was a Grant Williams jab. And you go through the various podcasts yesterday, and it was Simmons and Russillo talking about him. It was Brad Townsend, I think, put out a little bit of a thing on it. It's like, enough people report it. I don't understand why everyone's like, this is not a thing. Whatever. He's gone. We don't have to think about him again. I'm sure I'll continue to take jabs because I'm a petty dummy. And Edvard says, why does Tim have a beef with Luka? He doesn't. It's just a reporter's job is not to be friends with the subject that you cover. So sometimes you get into these questions and people. There's
going to be tension.
There's tension.
That's the relationship.
And when things aren't great, that tension tends to rise. There's also the fact that Tim's writing a book and Luka does not want him to write that book. That's kind of the be all end all of what's going on there. Dang, we're nearly at 800 live show listeners.
Oh, that's crazy.
I mean, this was just what a way to go. This was just I don't have enough nice things to say about that. It's fantastic. It's just such a fun win. And and what's funny is you could even see like elements of improvement if you wanted to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Lively and Exum didn't even play. So like what's this gonna look like when Maxi's either, maybe coming off the bench or Lively's back in the fold and you get 48 minutes of Lively and Gafford on the floor to, not together obviously, but just, playing the center position, like Exum coming off the bench because they do probably need his backup guard ability right now because right now basically it's Jaden Hardy's the backup guard, or they just stagger Luka and Kyrie. So like you get Exum back, you can maybe lower some of Luka and Kyrie's minutes a little bit. So yeah, I mean, this is for them to do this and not even be at full strength is very encouraging. It was a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, it was just fun to watch. They haven't played a fun game like this in, even the 3 previous wins were good, solid wins, but there was nothing. They haven't done anything like this since, man, I don't know. I guess when they played Portland at the start of January, but that was Portland. Like that doesn't matter. Like doing this to Oklahoma City matters in a way that their previous wins it's just not the same. And shout out to, I think it should be noted that we haven't talked about this point yet, but the Thunder punched back in the second quarter, like after kind of things cooled down a little bit, and for the Mavericks to not only withstand that punch back, but to then increase the lead in the second half, I think is probably the most impressive thing they've done all season. Because this is a team that has not responded well to getting punched back. Think about the Milwaukee game. They were up 20 in the first half and then slowly just stripped that lead away after the first quarter. This one, the second quarter, I could see Mavs fans thinking this is the Milwaukee game all over again. And then the third quarter, they drop 39. They get their lead back up into 20 or whatever it was. And it was never a close game after that. It was pretty impressive to see them respond in a way they don't usually get to respond mid-game when things aren't going well for them.
So I've got an idea because there's already just jokes, mainly jokes. It's like should Gafford start over Lively type thing? And I just something I think they should try. Whoever starts every game is whoever got the most dunks in the game before.
Why not?
Contest. What do you think?
Why not? Go for it.
Just love it.
I mean, that's going to be a pretty competitive I mean,
seventh and eighth. They're seventh and eighth in the league, respectively, for total dunks.
I wonder if there is going to be a side bet in that locker room to see who can finish with more dunks. That'll be.
I would. Yes.
Knowing how NBA players spend their free time and like to make bets and gamble and not like gamble, but play cards and stuff.
Shout out to our former staffer Logan Thompson, who legitimately disappeared. Well. I've not talked to Logan in like 3 months. Do we got anything else, or should we close this up?
I think I'm okay. I know we're riding the high of having 800 people in here, but all good things must come to an end, I guess.
so many dunks, so many blocks, so many rebounds, so many nice passes. Just while I'm thinking about it one more time, the Luka pass to Dwight Powell during the Knicks game, that is just gonna live in my head for the rest of my life. Do you have any thoughts on the last roster spot? Andreas just posted about this. That's a good one.
I don't know.
I am glad Spencer didn't sign. Like, if Spencer got swayed by going to the Los Angeles Lakers game when they're literally the worst team, like go forth.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. But living in LA is fun.
Hate him. The Mavericks are the kind of team where you can say weird stuff and nobody thinks about it. You can't do that in Los Angeles.
Yeah, they will pick up on anything he says post game.
Yeah.
So. I don't know. If Exum's injury is something that's more serious, I don't know if it's more serious than let on, but I mean, he's been
time.
He's been out for a while. If they're not confident in him finishing the season healthy, then they probably need to try to see if there's a veteran guard that they can get. Seems like the other ones, like Kyle Lowry, I think is pegged to go to Philadelphia. So Don't really know who's out there for veteran backup guard on the buyout market, but that's where I would lean. But otherwise, if they get like Marcus Morris, I mean, you'll be mad about it for like 10 minutes, but then we'll go on with their day. I just don't see them that unless they get a backup guard. I don't see whoever they get in the buyout market mattering too much because I feel pretty well fortified otherwise.
I made this joke before the show started, just in the chat, right? Because I really don't want to play the Clippers. But I can't help now but thinking now more than ever the Mavericks are going to play the Clippers, just because if like Luka's on a hero's journey, you eventually have to slay the monster, and the Clippers are Luka's secret monster. I don't want either Morris brother on the team, but what if you had both Morris brothers to go play the Clippers?
Just use their 6 fouls to
just use their
Kawhi and George.
Instead of hacking the shit out of Luka, they're hacking the shit out of Kawhi.
There you go. And maybe when the Morris are combined together, they're like the twins or whatever, the super twins.
This is the take. Maybe Robin Lopez as backup guard. I like that one. I don't know. I
don't have a strong opinion because buyout guys usually don't matter too much.
That's true.
Historically.
No, but I still like, it's who's the guard, the G League guy that I can't stand that they constantly threaten to bring back, who has his own podcast. Theo. I mean, we have to admit in 2021-22, the Theo Pinson signing was legitimately purposeful. Like he wasn't a buyout guy, but like they brought him up and he mattered.
Everyone had COVID.
He mattered, and he was vibes were important. I want so. As much as we're like, oh, that last spot doesn't matter, I can't help but thinking that
you don't want them to punt it.
Yeah, you don't want to punt. That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one. Okay, 40 minutes in. Great show, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. If you please would consider subscribing to the show, also setting up your notifications. If you could go ahead and like the stream one more time, leave a comment, that sort of thing. Head over to Mavs Moneyball, where Josh Bowe wrote an incredible recap. I'm sure I haven't actually read it yet, but Josh is a better writer than I am. So here we go. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Hope I didn't say anything too stupid. But if I did, too bad. Go Mavs. This has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe of Pod Maverick. Everyone have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you on, I think, Monday. Bye, guys.
The playoffs are heating up, and you can still play along on Underdog Fantasy. Whether it's their pick'em game, where you pick higher or lower on 2 to 5 of your favorite players' stats, or their fan favorite draft games, there's plenty of fun to be had, and maybe you'll win some money when you do. Head over to Underdog Fantasy's app or website to check it out now, where they match your first-time deposit up to $100.